Hey everyone, my name is Brad. Welcome back to the vlog. I love all of my patients, but today I wanted to talk about scams and how patients have tried to scam me in the past and what you can do to look out for those scams. Even if you don't own a medical practice, this is very common for most types of businesses. So here we go. Let's figure out what kind of scams happen to me and how you can avoid them. First off, if you're a patient and you're watching my channel, I have nothing but love for every patient that I have, but I own a business. I own a primary care business where we have about 21,000 patients and 99.9% of them are lovely, but there's those occasional people that will push your buttons and will try to take advantage of you. And today I wanted to talk about those times when someone tried to take advantage of my office. All right, the first one that I wanted to talk to goes all the way back to the pandemic when things just started. Remember when you couldn't find masks anywhere for sale? I had a patient come in, booked as a new patient appointment, wanted to get tested for COVID, totally fine, tested him for COVID, and then said, he wanted to wait around for the results. So waited in the room. Then I go talk to my MA and I said, hey, the result came back negative. Where's that guy at? Oh, he said he actually had to leave and do something for work. So the next patient comes in, clean the room, next patient comes in. Yeah, he stole all of our masks and gloves. Anything he could find with a mask or glove related, he took it all. He walked out in a backpack with all the masks that he could shove into his backpack. That obviously doesn't happen very often, but that was a very interesting scenario where some guy decided to take all of our gloves and masks right at the very beginning of the pandemic, which left us with only one tiny little box of masks that had like 50 masks in it or something like that. All right, the next one is kind of easy to spot after I became knowledgeable about what's going on. Patients would book with us and they would give us a PO box for their address. 9 times out of 10, when a patient gives me a PO box, because we're in the central of the city, if they give me a PO box, they're gonna scam me. They're gonna try to scam me somehow. And a lot of times, it's either gonna be one of a couple things. It's either gonna be insurance fraud, check fraud, or they're gonna try to do a chargeback on their credit card. Now the first one, insurance fraud. People will come in and they will basically start getting really ticked off at the front staff. I've been a victim of identity thief. I don't want you guys to have my driver's license on file. And at first I was like, look, fine, we'll totally respect that. I get that you don't want us to have that on file because of identity theft in the past. But at the same time, if you can't trust your lawyer, your attorney, or your spouse, I feel like you're in big, big trouble. And I guess I should add your accountant to that list too. It didn't hit me until I had a lady come in who claimed to be an executive for Blue Cross Blue Shield. And she said all the right things about how to negotiate rates and whatever. It turns out that she was using her sister's insurance and that she was giving us the same story. She was a victim of identity theft, didn't want to put her ID on file. Yeah, it turns out that she was basically stealing her sister's identity and she was using her sister's insurance, and the insurance company recouped all that money from us. So that's a problem. If patients don't want to put an ID on file, we almost never let it slide anymore. Eventually we will make them put an ID on file or something. Even if it's a second like credit card or something like that, we'll blur out the numbers. We need 2 forms of identification at this point in time. All right, the next thing is that fake checks. Fake checks will look like when you ever open a bank account, usually before you get your real checkbook, they will give you these checks that are printed out that have this kind of like, they look smaller, they look flimsier, they almost feel like paper, and they oftentimes have some very like shady looking numbers at the bottom. That's their account numbers printed on obviously by a different printer that printed the whole other check. Those checks, 10 out of 10 times, they get kicked back as a fraudulent check and they never go through. We no longer accept those checks. And basically we have to get a manager approval if we're gonna accept any check at that point in time. And when we do accept a check, we deposit it same day. Why does this come up? 9 out of 10 times, patients would come in, they'd be asking for benzos, pain meds, or Adderall. And if we wouldn't give them what they want, they would call the check company and say, hey, actually I need to cancel payment on that check. And then they'd cancel payment on that check. So that way we would never get paid from it. The same thing applies for the credit card cashbacks, where they basically say, hey, someone stole my credit card and they tried to use it at this doctor's office. So now in our terms of service for the doctor's office, whenever someone signs into our clinic, we have it in there that if for some reason we have to share this financially with your credit card company, we're gonna send your last note. We're gonna send the legal note as proof that you basically were here and this is what we treated you for. And you agree to those terms of service when you come to our clinic. All right, the final thing is that I've actually had patients fax in fraudulent requests or verbally call in fraudulent requests for medications to the pharmacy. As long as you have an NPI number or know the doctor's NPI number, we all know this, you can call to the pharmacy and call in a script. Well, there was a patient who decided to just call in their own scripts for themselves doing this. Well, of course, they were using their real name to go pick up the medication. So the cops did a sting operation. They ended up catching them. Stupid thing, it's a felony. Walmart actually alerted me that codeine was misspelled on one of the faxed in scripts to Walmart. We don't fax in anything to Walmart at this point in time. And luckily the state law in the state of Texas has changed that basically you need a hardship license to now send in controlled substances. So this has made it a lot more difficult. But yeah, we've had patients fax in their own scripts or call in their own scripts under my NPI before. And you better believe it that I filed charges against them because impersonating a physician, it's a felony, and I'm not gonna let that go. I love all my patients, and in any business, there's always gonna be someone who's gonna be trying to take advantage of your kindness. But these are the big things that I've noticed when it comes to fraud. If you ever see a patient put a PO box down as their address, unless you live in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, and it's very difficult to decide where your home address is because you're moving between, some places and you have good excuse. Look, we live in downtown in a city in Texas almost. There's no excuse to have a PO box as your main address. Every time someone puts a PO box as their home address, we're gonna get scammed. 10 out of 10 times where we're at. All right, guys, out of 21,000 patients, that is not the normal. But at the same time, I wanted to at least throw this out there to say like, hey, there are a handful of patients that are gonna try to take advantage of your kindness and what you should be looking out for.